And I've even been accused by my sister. She goes, Brian, you make good points. You come off like a condescending asshole.
Heidi, if you're watching, you're absolutely right.
I'm not going to say probably. She didn't wish death on these kids.
You've never taught.
Exactly. I'm not a teacher.
We're letting a lot of our liberties and freedoms and things like that being taken away from us, and we're standing by too quietly and letting things being dictated to us instead of thinking for ourselves.
Good morning, world. Today we're going to talk about something that's a little bit more, unfortunately, controversial. I don't think it should be.
Since Brian and I both live in California, we're going to talk about reopening California. Other states are reopening, and we think it's about time that we reopen. And I know this is going to be a controversial topic for a lot of you, but I think something needs to be discussed. So stay tuned, and please put your comments in the bottom after we finish with this, because I know some of you have some very pointed comments that you want to add. So let's get into this. I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. And this is Cedric and Brian. All right, we're back. But before we get into this topic, I'd like to send a shout out and a thank you to our sponsor at Just for Men. Just for Men is what keeps Cedric and I from looking like Santa Claus.
I have no comment.
So again, if you're getting a little bit of gray, which we are not, just try some of this wash-in shampoo from Just for Men.
And before we get too deep into this topic, you're probably thinking, well, what does Cedric and Brian have to offer on this? And again, I know it's been talked in homes all across America. You check our very first video, we're just two guys that are just talking about stuff, and this is one of them. I've been in education for well over 10 years now. I am a little bummed, to tell you the truth, that I've been away from my students, the Zoom meetings, the Google Classroom. We've adapted and stuff, but there's something about that personal one-on-one experience that really steals from the education process. So my education is just strictly being in education. I've been a member of the Rotary here in town for a number of years, a member of a couple churches. So I've been around a lot of people, and I've been around the community for a long time.
And you've actually been in education much longer than 10 years. You were in education when I met you. You were working at a university.
Yes.
Yeah, so
yes.
You've been in education for well over 20 years.
Right.
Just
Thanks
want to
for
make that up. Yeah. You said 10 years, I'm like, wait a minute. You've been in education a lot longer than 10 years. My dad had a health insurance third-party administration company. I started working at his business when I was a teenager. I started first working on actually typing in claims, so I've been around the medical field as far as insurance, so I know what goes on in insurance since I was a teenager, and I'm 54 now. Then I programmed for him during school, where I did graduate with a science degree. I have a Bachelor of Science in Biology. So I studied anatomy, biology, physiology. From there, I went to chiropractic school, and I have a doctorate of chiropractic. I've been in clinical practice now for over 20 years, almost 25 years, dealing with the public with health conditions for most of my adult life. So anyways, that's my background. Does it mean our opinions are any better than anybody else's? Absolutely not. We just wanted to let you know our background before we get started on this.
You know, we've been talking about this back and forth, we've bounced it back and forth, and it's about time that California reopened. And I'm being very respectful to those of you who think that it should stay closed. But my point of view is like, if you don't want to go out, if you don't want to go to the beaches, if you don't want to go to the malls, if you don't want to be out and about, stay at home. That is your choice, that is your prerogative. But for those that want to get out and they're not fearful of this thing, and it's not the pandemic that the media is creating it, I say get out there, let's get back to business as usual.
So what would you say, though, to the people that say you're putting other people at risk?
I personally think the numbers have been inflated. Listen to one of the renowned experts on this, Zeke Emanuel, who's a well-known American oncologist. He is on record as saying when this first started, and he went on record saying we have 1 million COVID-19 cases in the country. And they're projecting that to double every 3 to 4 weeks. So based on those numbers, if it doubled every 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to have 100 million people with COVID-19 in 3 to 4 weeks. The problem with that, we don't have 100 million people with COVID-19. So his projections were off just by a little bit, 99%.
Those projections were made if we didn't do this lockdown and we didn't do social distancing. Once they said we did this, then they dropped it down that said, I don't know about the numbers of actual people getting it, but they said the deaths would be anywhere from 100,000 to 240,000 originally with social distancing. And right now it looks like we could reach 100,000 of deaths from this.
Please keep in mind what I'm saying. I am being sensitive. I think anytime you start boiling people down to statistics and numbers, you're being insensitive, you're being cruel. And I don't want to be accused of doing that. But when you take the person, and I'm using the extreme here, you're taking the person that has stage 4 pancreatic cancer. and they get COVID-19. Now the coroner has to put on the report, oh, they died of COVID-19. No, they died of pancreatic cancer.
I mean, that is a cynical. I see where you're coming from, and I know some of that is happening. I've even seen some statistics because I looked on the CDC actual website, which I'll put here. If you look at COVID-19 by themselves cases, it's not at 54,000 deaths right now in the U.S. Pneumonia plus influenza plus a possible COVID-19 is at 50, well, as you watch this, it changes every day, 64,000 deaths. Could be 70 by the time you watch this. We know that the projections at the beginning were off. As the numbers come in, we're hoping we're getting the right numbers. We've talked about how the numbers can be looked at by different sources and shown. People will take and pick what numbers they like to support whatever side of the fence they're on this, which is unfortunate. Cedric and I here mainly, we're not here to debate really the numbers at this point. We're here to debate whether California, number one, should reopen, or maybe should it have been closed down at all. Obviously, we want to save lives, but is there an overreach? And Cedric, you were going to talk about some of the overreach.
Yeah, I think overreach, and to not to use the term police state, but there's been a few examples going around that have just been, if you guys check on YouTube, maybe Brian will put it in the link there, we can show it really quick, it's about 30-40 seconds. It was a 93-year-old couple, 93 years old, who went to a beach in Oxnard, California, which is about a little north of Los Angeles, and they're sitting on the beach in their lawn chairs, or their beach chairs rather, they're close to the ground, and a mounted policeman comes up to them on his horse, very intimidating, to a 93-year-old couple who made the conscious choice, just like, yeah, we know things are going on, but we want to go to the beach. They went to the beach and they're sitting on the beach chairs, and he tells them, and it's kind of, the audio is kind of hard to read. He's telling them you can be like on a blanket or whatever, but you can't be in your beach chair because for some reason the beach chair made
fixed.
The fixture. It's a fixture.
Yeah, which is not true. I can understand if it was a park bench that other people will use, but it's their own beach chairs.
Yeah, and I understand, but in certain cases I am a letter of the law person, but sometimes common sense has to take place, and you have to be a spirit of the law person. It's like, does this make sense? What harm is a 93-year-old couple going to do with a less than 2-pound beach chair planted in the sand? It's just silly. He made them pack up and move. It's just weird. I'm gonna get into this later, but I think we should follow suit of. I haven't been there in a long time. I have an aunt who lives there, and but Texas. There's two gals in Laredo, Texas. Their names are, I forget it really quick, Anna Isabel Castro and Brenda Stephanie Mata. They are hairdressers, cosmetologists in Laredo, Texas. And because of this, what I'm going to call the new snitch app, where it's okay for people to tattletale, more or less, on people who are open for business. And again, I'm going to what I said earlier. If you don't want to go to the beach, fine. If you don't want to go to the park, fine. If you don't want to go patronize your local hairdresser or barbershop or restaurant, don't go.
My daughter is probably working more hours than I am. I'm considered essential. She's considered essential. She works at a pizza place. Why is pizza essential? You can go to the store, you can buy all the food you need, and it's cheaper. Why is a teenager essential?
The Target's open, the Walmart's open, the stores are open, the Home Depots, the Lowe's, but you can't go in a one-on-one setting where a cosmetologist will probably use a spirit of the law sense, put on gloves, put on a mask, and give you the service that you're paying for.
We don't realize the impact that this is having outside of the COVID-19 numbers.
Right.
And that's all we're saying. We're not trying to tell people to go out. The last thing I would do is tell people, go outside. But then you shouldn't have people tell them not to go take a walk on the beach. And I am getting a little tired of people saying, well, you can't judge that against people dying. You absolutely can judge it because you're making a decision on a totality. Number one, 100% of the people that get this don't die. So it's disingenuous for people to say, you go out and you're going to die. No, the chances in California of you catching and dying from this is like 0.002.
Yeah.
Not the stats as if you have it and at the hospital. That sure is, they're saying is 0.3 to 0.6. That's if you have it. But to get it and then die from it, the statistics show it is very, very low.
And again, I think we're a peaceful people, but I think it's getting to the point now where people are going to start to rebel and revolt. And do it peacefully, I understand. Just, for example, here in Southern California, we had a quiet protest of people down in Huntington Beach.
My contention isn't the protest. Whether you wanted to protest, whether you didn't, do you have a right to protest? Sure, as long as you do it safely. But then I see how things get twisted, because within 24 hours, there's a headline, and somewhere said that more than 50% of people only read headlines. So they know that. So they'll do a headline, and if you don't read the rest of the article, you're aghast and appalled. But even the headline in this case said, amid protests, there is a spike of coronavirus or COVID-19 cases within 24 hours. Just use common sense. Really? So you show the protests, and within 24 hours, the numbers go up. Really? But then the thing that makes it worse is then you read the comments, because I'm a comment reader, and then you read people who are supposed to be the people that really care about human lives, and they literally say, I hope these people die of coronavirus.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
I mean, really? I mean, I know that they're just saying it out of fear or anger, and I've even been accused by my sister. She goes, Brian, you make good points, but you come off like a condescending asshole. So I have to try not to be a condescending asshole. I'm trying not to be.
Heidi, if you're watching, you're absolutely right. I agree with you that.
But some of that becomes out of my fear, my anxiety, and my wanting to know the answers, and I get frustrated. And I know I need to do better. And just so you know, I don't post anything on Facebook about this, but I do respond when I do see something that I don't think is fair. That's all. If it doesn't seem fair to me, I'm going to respond. And if I come off like a condescending asshole, I apologize for that. I don't mean to. I think it's just my frustration, like everybody, and that's why I try to take it with a grain of salt. When people say they hope people die from it, I know they're just frustrated too. We're all frustrated. We all have anxiety on this. Even the people who claim to be, the people that are the deniers, they don't believe in it, which I don't think there's any rational person that doesn't believe it. I think what they do is they just think that it's being overhyped, and that's a reasonable thing to have. And what happens is they get minimalized and called deniers and things like that.
Right.
So anyways, I apologize. I don't mean to come off like a
condescending asshole.
Condescending asshole, Heidi. I apologize. I will try better to temper that.
Well, like you said, the anxiety and stuff, and the fear, and I don't think as people, we're relational beings. I think we're designed to be relational beings. So being quarantined away from people, I think in the long run, that's just not healthy, because we're designed to relate to each other and be a community with each other. And it's causing people to react in irrational ways. If you show this video, in New Jersey, there's a teacher, there's two young boys throwing a football in a park, and this teacher loses her mind. She goes off on the kids and tells them, you're the reason why we're not being set free, and we're imprisoned, and we have to stay in our houses. And she went on to say basically that,
but die, okay? I hope both of you get the coronavirus. I hope you both die a long, painful death.
She hopes they die.
She wishes death on them because it's COVID-19. It is causing people to act in irrational, irresponsible ways.
And we know, because people will take that and they'll say, look at this horrible teacher. I know she probably, I'm not going to say probably, she didn't wish death on these kids.
You've never taught.
Exactly. I'm not a teacher. I've been around teachers now. Maybe she did. But most of that is out of fear. A lot of the fear is being perpetrated, unfortunately, by both sides to get a point across. That's why we're trying to do this as a long form discussion, not taking bits and trying to say, oh, this person's terrible, this person's terrible. Taking it as in the totality, trying to point out what we think are some inconsistencies in the whole narrative. One of the things I've looked at, and I had a friend of mine that I knew from high school, Lance Neal, and I know he watches these. Lance, thank you. I know we don't see eye to eye on everything, but Lance has good discussions, and I think what my sister talked about me being a condescending asshole, I probably do on some of the responses to him, and I apologize. But that being said, I talk about Sweden, and there's two sides, and he helps me actually think deeper on it. So Sweden didn't do a complete lockdown. What they did is they gave the information to their citizenry, they protected the people that are vulnerable, but they didn't close the schools, they didn't close the restaurants down, they just said, please wear masks, socially distance, and be smart about it. All right? Their numbers are higher than Norway, Iceland, and some of these other countries, which Lance pointed out to me, per per million when it comes to deaths, which is true. Stockholm, though, is where it's the highest. Stockholm is a hub. When I went to Europe, we flew into Stockholm and then we flew down to Spain. So Stockholm is a hub where a lot of people commute through. So number one, it's not apples to apples, even though they're in the same part of the world. Even if that were true, even the WHO, one of the directors there said, Sweden may have done this right by not locking down because they may reach herd immunity, which is what happens when at least 60% of the population, usually from vaccine, has antibodies. They may reach it. So yes, their numbers are higher now, but only time will tell if on the second wave that everybody's saying we're going to get, if they're going to be better because they won't have the second wave. We absolutely will in the places we lock down because eventually we're going to have to go out unless we just lock down forever,
right,
or there's a vaccine. But again, there's no guarantee there's going to be a vaccine. In fact, most of the coronavirus vaccines that have come out since SARS and the corona vaccines of the early 2000s have actually shown to do more harm. And that's the reason why we don't have a vaccine for SARS. So for people to say, let's just stay locked down until a vaccine, by the time that happens, if it does happen, what's going to happen to the world population and starvation in those third world countries that rely on the richer nations to help with that, and just our own nation of suicides and bankruptcy. So that's all I'm saying. And I'm doing this out of not as a gotcha. I'm just looking at the data like everybody else, but I literally spend hundreds of hours looking at it.
Yes. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I have another observation. We talked about how things are people read the bold headline, but they don't read the news article. People read the scare tactic and out there, but they don't read the news for themselves. We're encouraging you to do your own research, read for yourself. Now, Brian and I, we're on this YouTube platform. We get to have a voice here, and we're using YouTube for that. We don't want to tell you what to think. We thank you for your viewership. We thank you for watching, but it's just Brian and I sharing our ideas, sharing our viewpoints, and that's what's beautiful about a platform like this. If we all get to share our viewpoints and our points of view and our paradigms. Whatever your viewpoints are, put them in the comments section and let us know and articulate why. And try to not to make it an emotional knee-jerk reaction, but if you have facts to back things up, we would love to hear it.
Our premise for this is the reasons for or against trying to get things back to a little bit more normalcy. Trying to let small business owners, like our friend who is the hairdresser, to be able to make a living. Why is it not arbitrary that my daughter at 17 who doesn't pay rent can be in a place next to other people and somebody who does hair can't? That's all we're asking. Do we think that is a responsible thing to do?
This country's always been, our forefathers came here and they took chances, they took risks, and we are a country, we're a people who took chances, we took risks. We're a grassroots organization where men and women came over here and by the sweat of their brow and by their strength and their power, they built businesses. Whether it be a blacksmith shop or something else, or a speakeasy or a brewery, that they created these businesses and they grew and they fostered, and the government was there to support them, not dictate to them what to do or how to operate. And I feel that a lot of our liberties are being taken away. And like I said before, the Home Depots are open, the Targets are open, the Walmarts are open, but our churches are closed. Our small businesses are closed. The things that made us a country, the country that we are being closed. That should make you think. We're letting a lot of our liberties and freedoms and things like that being taken away from us, and we're standing by too quietly and letting things being dictated to us instead of thinking for ourselves. This is outside of the scope of our normal videos, but we felt it was just an issue that needed to be discussed. We had to put it on the table there. Again, leave your comments. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you ring the bell, and please leave your comments. But until next time, I'm Cedric.
And I'm Brian. I'll see you later.